everyone, and welcome to the first episode of my podcast series, Mari Talks. Our today's guest is Yunja Choi. She is a global startup business graduate school student, and she works as a medical interpreter, a legal interpreter, and a culture tour guide too. And currently, she is making YouTube videos about healthy Korean food and Korean language. I'm so honored to make this episode with her. Thank you so much for accepting my request. Yunja-shi, welcome to my first podcast episode. Firstly, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Yunja Choi. My nickname is Julia. I studied Chinese and English literature, and now I'm a global startup business student too. And I used to live in Oxford City in the UK, so I can speak English. And my hobbies are traveling and cooking, especially for healthy Korean food. So right after coronavirus, I started to make YouTube focusing on healthy Korean food. So international friends, they are following my YouTube over 30 countries. And my job is interpretation and medical interpretation.
As a Korean, what do you think when you see that your country became internationally known and the Korean culture is getting popular day after day by the Korean Hallyu wave?
As a Korean, I'm proud of my country's culture. We think inner beauty is important from all generations. Especially Korean food or art, culture are great. Korean food is good for health, such as kimchi, doenjang, etc. fermentation foods. We use lots of garlic, onions, and vinegars. It can help our immune system to improve our immune. Also, Koreans are beautiful and handsome, so Korean Hallyu wave became very famous, BTS as well. So I think it can be more popular. And right after coronavirus, Korean food getting more popular in the world because the garlic and onion and fermentation food helps our health a lot. So in the world, so many people want Korean. Also, Hangul, which is scientific and easy to learn, is really famous in the world. So many students abroad, they are learning Hangul. And they come to Korea and they love culture and hanbok as well.
What makes you think to open a YouTube channel and share about the Korean food especially? And how is the interaction between your content and foreigners?
Since when I was in the UK, I have known thousands of international friends. Also, I have hosted hundreds of guests from abroad at my home. At that time, I served Korean traditional food by myself. They loved it. So face to face, I have taught Korean traditional food because Korean food is really good for health. Also, it's really delicious. However, after coronavirus, lots of international friends, they called me even at midnight. They wanted me to open YouTube about healthy Korean food. So I couldn't help open YouTube. So I never imagined being in front of camera for my international friend to help people around. At first, for my international friend, I started YouTube healthy Korean food. But as time passed by, their friends started to follow my YouTube over 30 countries. So at that time, more and more people they are wanting and Korean food, so I have to prepare more. So they love because my policies are first easy to follow, cook abroad. Number two, it's yummy with a natural flavor. Third, it's good for health. That's why lots of people they are following my YouTube. We can be connected very directly. I wanna help people around the world.
While you are living in the UK, do you find any Korean culture places, events, or something like that? Or you think to organize something related to the Korean food?
When I was in the UK 20 years ago, whenever people met me, they asked me, "Where do you come from?" So I said, "I come from Korea." They asked me again, "South or North?" So I said, "Of course, I come from South Korea." However, nearly 100% people they asked again South or North. So I was a little confused because people in North Korea they cannot go abroad, but all people ask me, "Where do you come from?" Whenever I said I come from Korea, they asked me again. And then after that, they asked me again, "Do you know Samsung?" I said, "I know. The Samsung is really famous. It was born in Korea right next to my house. And Samsung was born actually in my city." So after that, I was thinking about Samsung so deeply. After coming back home to Korea, and I studied Samsung a lot, around 10 years. Last year, I joined a global startup business graduate school again. So I created a special tourism. It's about entrepreneurship tour. It's focusing on Samsung and lots of international friends. My friends, they are really interested in my tour. That tour. So that is about Samsung. Samsung was born in my city, right next to my house. It takes 10 minutes on foot. So it is about connected when I was in the UK. And some event. 4 years ago, I went to the UK again to visit my English friends. And I stayed at her house for 2 weeks, and she used to teach English in my city, so she loved kimchi. So at that time, even if a lack of ingredient, I made kimchi for her, and she loved that one. So I am really vegetarian, and when I was in the UK, I couldn't find out Korean food. So I lost nearly 9 kilograms for 6 months, and I was really suffering from food at that time. I wasn't used to get eating Western food, butter or. Also, when I was in the UK, most of the restaurant, and when you have a seminar and conference, the restaurant was separated three kind of sector for vegetarian and meat eater and semi-vegetarian. And 20 years ago, that was really shocked. Just in Korea, we didn't separate it like that. So I was moved. Oh, it's really sensitive or to care their health. I was nearly vegetarian, but I could eat meat. But as time passes by, so many people they wanna avoid meat and heavy things and fried beans for their health. So on my YouTube, I'm really focusing on vegetarian and good for. So on my YouTube, my recipes are first easy to cook, especially abroad. Second, it's yummy with a natural flavor. Third, it's good for health. That is my policies on my YouTube. Nearly I'm focusing on the vegetarian and for good for health. I'm a medical interpreter and a legal interpreter. Also, I'm a local culture tour guide too. These are my main jobs.
As a Korean, from now to 5 years, what do you wanna see more in Korea? I mean, your wishes to your country. What you want the Korean culture achieve in the world?
Okay, from now to 5 years, I think we can face it's like COVID-19, and maybe it can be stronger. So we have to have healthy food, especially healthy Korean food instead of junk food, to be healthier, to improve immune system. So that's why I started YouTube about healthy Korean food. So I think Korean food can be spread around the world within 5 years. I think within 1 or 2 years it can be more popular and more famous in the world. And next, about the Korean culture. About Korean culture, and actually, Korea has 5,000 years history, deep history, and beautiful history, and beautiful sceneries also. So Korean culture means inner beauty, and also Hangul is a scientific and unique language. It can be spread around the world because it's really easy to learn and beautiful letter. It can contain a whole culture, I think. And back then, we used to use Chinese letter. That is like Chinese colonization. The King Sejong made Hangul despite of so Korean culture can be spread so fastly and popular. It's like BTS and Hangul, and nowadays so many students from abroad, even in their countries, they are learning Korean language. So through Korean language, Hangul, Korean culture can be spread a lot, and also songs and some art. So I'm not sure, but the Korean culture can be spread very fast and very widely.
Do you have any personal plans, what are your personal goals or things that you want to achieve?
Yes, I have future plans. First, as a Korean, I'd like to introduce healthy Korean food to people around the world to help their health, especially under coronavirus. We may face stronger than COVID-19 in the future. Second, as a global startup business school students, I would like to work together with the youth in the world for people's health.
What do you want to say to the international fans of the Korean culture?
Okay, to the international fans of the Korean culture, it is called Hallyu. I think the key role is the 홍익 인간 in Korean, and that means we think others first, and then family, and then last we think oneself. That is the key point of the international fans of the Korean culture. Okay, I'd like to explain about Korea. Korea is from Korea, Korea, and Korea is from core, Core. Originally, Korea is core, that means center. So Korea is the center of the universe. That means Korea can be the center of the universe. So Hallyu, that means Korean culture can be spread around the world. Okay, let me explain about that in detail. Okay, first, as a local culture tour guide, I can recognize it very well. Korea has a 5,000 years old history, so every spot and every place has a deep and beautiful history. For example, in my city, Daegu has a 20,000 years old history, much longer than Korean history. So in my city, we have a lot of history, Blogoven, and a lot of famous place. Okay, second, as a medical interpreter, I belong to my city, Daegu. Daegu is the most famous medical city in the world. Especially under coronavirus, my city became really popular around the world. And Korea is the really famous and the best country on health insurance system. That is the best ever in the world. So in the future, so many people and patients, they're gonna visit my city and Korea too, I'm sure. I would like to explain about my city, Daegu. First, Samsung was born in my city right next to my house. So as I'm a global startup business graduate school student, so I created entrepreneurship tour. It's about Samsung's birthplace. So many people are interested in this place. Originally, Samsung was built another province, but it went bankrupt. And then after that, the founder of Samsung, he established Samsung in my city in Daegu, and then it can last so far for 70 years, and it became the biggest international company in the world. I would like to say about the Hallyu. First, food. Healthy Korean food it can be really famous, especially under coronavirus. Korean food is really famous because it's a fermentation food. We use a lot of garlics and onions and vinegar, etc. So it can face, it's like a coronavirus, COVID-19. We may face a stronger coronavirus, so we have to improve our immune system. Second, I'd like to introduce about Korean language. It is called Hangul. Hangul is really scientific and easy to learn and pronounce easily, so it can be spread around the world. Nowadays, so many students and people, they are learning Hangul even in their countries as well. Okay, last, I would like to sum up Korean Hallyu, it can be spread because Korea is the core, the center of the universe. For example, healthy Korean food and hunger, and especially BTS, the youth members using music. It can move the youth in positive ways. So every field and every spot, every culture, it can be spread around the world because we have the really great spirit. It is called 홍익 인간. We think others first, so it must be spread around the world. You can be moved a lot, so many people must be liked. That's why I created, and then I started about healthy Korean food for my health and for my international friends through YouTube channel. Everyone can follow my YouTube channel. I hope you can be healthier and be happy.
What can you give as an advice to anyone who has a dream and he sees that's hard or wanna give up? Like dream to go to Korea, live, work, or study in Korea, or any kind of dream.
Okay, about Korean dream, I'd like to say to come to Korea is great, especially for the youth, because first the IT field is the best in the world, and second, food is the definitely best, and third, we have wonderful attractions and deep history. So if you come to Korea, you can enjoy food and culture and history. Also, Hangul can be very popular in the near future. So very welcome. Come to Korea. Welcome to my city, Daegu, please. Also, Daegu, my city is a peaceful city in the world. We live Japanese and Chinese and Koreans are living together. Three races are living peacefully. So it's a symbol, peaceful city in the world. Japanese general and Chinese general after war, they didn't go back to their country. They stayed in my city. So their descendants are living here up to 400 years, so we are living together. My city is the peaceful city in the world.
Thank you so much, Yunja Choi, for your answers and for your presence with us today.